Okay, hi everybody. Thank you all for joining, and those of you that are still trying to join, who should join us in the next few minutes. My name is Andy Bass. I'm an executive in residence at Brunel University Business School, and I've spent just over 30 years to the day, almost, working in the technology industry. So a quick happy 30th to me. This webinar is aimed at women who might or should be considering a career in the technology space. So we've invited a team of women from all around the IT industry who have and still are working in the sector. And we've asked them to come along and share with us their experiences, their tips, their advice, and answer any questions that you may have as we go along. We're also fortunate to have a presentation from a major IT recruitment company who are going to share their perspective on the opportunities for women in technology. And they've also offered to work directly alongside Brunel to help place Brunel students and alumni in particular in this sector. So please feel free to follow up with them at some point after this. The presentation should take just under 1 hour if everyone holds to about 10 minutes, no more. If you're on the call, you can add to the chat, and you can also put in a formal Q&A as we're going along. But we will endeavour to cover that at the end. So don't be shy to ask some questions. We'll get the people on that case as we go. So to set the scene, I'm going to hand over to Professor Jane Hendy, who is the Dean of the Business School here at Brunel.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks very much. Welcome, everybody. I can't actually see you all, but I'm going to say good to see you all anyway. I hope everybody's fit and well. I hope everybody's safe. I hope everybody's okay in these very challenging times. Like me, you're probably used to doing all these webinars and Zoom meetings. I think I'm getting to enjoy them. I hope so. I'm learning all sorts of new technology, whether I want to or not at the moment. So I'm definitely a woman embedded in technology right now. So why are we running this webinar series? What's the point of it? Because we want to encourage you, convince you, persuade you that a career in technology, if you're a woman, and also if you're a man, we're not going to exclude the men from this webinar, but especially if you're a woman, because women are underrepresented in this sector. We want to convince you that this could be a great career for you, a great opportunity, and that you may not think that you're a sort of technology type person, but you can be. I mean, I would say for myself, I've researched probably 10, maybe 20 years now, nearly, technology and the transformative nature of technology, particularly in the public sector and particularly in healthcare. And like I said, I spent many years researching this. And before I started, and even now, I think I'm probably the least technologically able individual on the planet. When we talk about technology adoption, I'm definitely in the laggard stage, pretty useless to be fair. But actually my lack of sort of engagement with innovative technology has been really useful, because I look at technology's transformative potential and I do it with a very sort of cold heart. Because I'm not in love with technology, and so it helps me really be very subjective, and it's been very useful in my work. And I've surprised myself how incredibly interesting and fascinating I found it. Something I never would have guessed about myself if I hadn't found myself there by accident, I suppose. And that's the great thing about technology. It transforms and it touches everything that we do. So no matter who you are and how you feel about technology, there's a place for you in this sector, I think. And also the place in this sector is pretty recession-proof. It's pretty good because there's just so many software and hardware platforms, so many technological solutions to everything. That, those spaces are just multitude and growing every day. Technology is also, incredibly recession proof, incredibly COVID proof, I might add. I mean, sounds like an odd thing to say, but in the post-COVID world that we're soon going to be inhabiting, one of the sectors that is least likely to de-invest or uninvest is the technology sector. I mean, people have never relied on it more. And so in many ways, you know, moving into a career that has technology in it in some way, and it doesn't have to be data, it doesn't have to be, you know, very sort of number-based either. I mean, there is a lot of that in technological careers, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be the sort of person that likes grappling with huge, massive analytic data sets to work in technology. You can do lots of things, you know, marketing, adoption, transformation. There's lots of different positions out there, and it's pretty COVID, pretty recession proof. So I would say, if you're a woman considering this, stay on this webinar and listen to some of the folk we've got that are going to tell you more, because hopefully they'll excite you and spark your interest and, you know, show you. We've got Marc, who is a man. I know, because I've seen him. He is a man, but he's also helped, you know, about 8,000 women move into this space with his recruitment efforts. So he's a man we like very, very much. And then there's a bunch of women, very successful women in their careers, who are also going to help you and tell you, you know, the pearls of their wisdom. Very, very useful. So I'm going to hand over to Marc, CEO and founder of Robertson Sumner Limited. Like I say, a specialist IT sales and technical recruitment consultancy. And he's going to whet your appetite further. Listen on.
Dane, what an intro. Thanks for that. So if I could go on to the first slide, and to all the listeners there. So why women? Why are we actually doing this webinar? And why did I try and get the four fabulous women that you're going to hear from shortly coming on? There's some shocking stats which are in front of you right now. 16.8% of women are in technology, and unfortunately that's been the same for the last 10 years. It's sort of hovered around the 17% mark for the last 10 years. Hasn't gone up, hasn't gone down, and there's a few reasons for that. One, not enough women role models, and luckily we've got four exceptional women today who are going to share their stories with you. But also, two, is the second stat that we've got on the slide, which is 27% of females only 27% would consider a role in technology, while 62% of men. And this is why that we wanted to sort of change that perception in the market, where we can get more of you. Hopefully some of you are in that 27% already and you would consider, but if you're not in that 27%, I really want to be able to convince you today that you should be actually considering technology. It's a fantastic industry. In my opinion, it is the best industry to go into. But I really want to be able to convince you that some of the stories you're going to hear this afternoon are going to be able to actually give you an idea of what it could be like to have a role in technology. Obviously, if the last stat I want to go on to is obviously 5% of leaders are only female, which again is a shocking stat. And this is why we very much want to change that. And again, the four females that we've got have risen to the top of their industry, and they'll share you their stories and hopefully will inspire you to come into our industry. So why technology? So when I first started Robertson Sumner 20 years ago, as you can see, Coca-Cola was the #1 brand. But if you look at some of the other stats as well, the other companies, you've got Marlboro, a cigarette company, Mercedes, Ford were in that top 20. But if we move on to the next slide, 2010, 10 years later, you'll see that, you know, IBM and Microsoft there. And if we go on to the next slide again, you'll see the emergence of an Apple and Google coming up. And you'll see more technology companies coming into those top sort of 10 or 15 brands. And if we go forward to 2015, and sorry, 2018 again. So we'll look at those. So if you look at those top 15 brands, you'll notice the top 6, 5 of them are IT companies: Apple, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Samsung. And technology is actually making sure that we're leading the global brands actually moving forward. So if we go on to the next slide as well. So the 10 most valuable brands in the world. Now, Amazon are a retail company, but if you look at their cloud and web services as well, they are run by technology. Google, technology. Apple, technology. Hopefully some of you probably have Apple products or an Apple Mac. Microsoft, probably most of you are using those products. Samsung, you might have a phone, and Facebook. But if you look at those 10 valuable brands, most of them are run by technology. And you're looking at an industry that is the most valuable industry as well. And as I said earlier already, that you'll be listened to for 3 of the leading companies from SAP, Dell, and 3, and they'll be able to share their stories of why it's actually such a great industry. So why now? Why are we actually doing this story? So this is obviously a new time at the moment through COVID, and what are the potential positives about that? Flexible working has been something that's been talked about in our industry for a long time, and Sarah will definitely share with her story about the last 15 years of actually having flexible working, maybe working from home, and how that she's maybe risen to the top in her career. But post-COVID, 41% of employees will be able to probably work remotely in our industry. And I'm hoping that's going to be an extra incentive for the women in the channel, and the women in graduates like yourselves, to come in on to our industry. And now it's not going to be so much as a barrier if you wanted a family or whatever you wanted to do, to come into our industry and think, actually, it's a real flexible industry I'm going into, because 41% of people can work remotely, can work in office. And as we've already, James already touched on already, the demand for technology is already there and will continue to be there. So you're probably using communication tools of Zoom, House Party, you're using Wi-Fi at home and remote working from home, or maybe you're doing conference calls with your friends or with your family or with your gran or whoever it is, or you're doing Joe Wick sessions on live streams and you're using Netflix, all powered from technology. And businesses have now been forced through this crisis to review their practices. So leadership now will become a bit more empathetic and maybe more supportive to actually around well-being, and actually making sure that there's going to be encouraging women to come into our industry, because as the economy rebuilds, they're looking at these stats themselves and thinking 17% has got to change, and what can we do to encourage females to come into the industry, whether that is flexible working, whether it is working around childcare, whether it is giving an opportunity to come into the market around well-being. And it's not going to be so, I'm hoping the stigma around technology is going to move away because of that, hopefully from post-COVID. I really want to emphasize this point, because technical doesn't have to be technical. I'm not technical at all. I struggle to get onto Zoom, but it doesn't mean I'm not interested in the industry, because I know that the roles in the industry are far from that. So yes, if you like coding, development roles into technical can be there. But, and I'm sure that the 4 ladies will encourage you and tell you about their stories, it doesn't have to be technical. You don't have to be, interested in computers. You don't have to be great at computers to go into our industry. If you're that person that likes meeting new people, you could go into sales, and that could be business development, trying to get new customers for people. If you're that person that likes relationship building with your existing friends, you could be doing that account management role where you're looking after existing customers for the company. And yet you've seen the platforms, the social media platforms out there, from Twitter, from TikTok, from Instagram. If you're someone that's creative, you can go into social media marketing, you can go to digital marketing, all around tech, all around the technology platforms. But also as well, if you're someone that's very organized, you're the person that gets your homework, or you're on time, if you're a person that organizes all your friends, if you're organizing the parties or whatever you're doing, you could go into operations, which are actually making the company seamlessly run. So please, if there's one point I really want to make, don't think going into technology, you have to be technical. Don't think going into technology, you have to be really good on computers. You don't. It's a fantastic industry. It's a very forward-thinking industry. It's a recession-proof industry. It is going to fuel the growth. But the one point I want to leave you on, and the 4 ladies that you'll hear from, well, hopefully some of them might say they're not technical as well. I don't know if Sarah and Jane and Emma are, but I'm certainly not. But what I will emphasize is, please don't think you have to be technical to come into our industry. There's lots of roles available, but it is a fantastic, and it is the best industry to go into. So I'll pass you on to Sarah, who will hopefully reiterate those words.
Thank you, Mark. And you're right, I'm not technical either, but I've worked in this industry for the last 25 years, and it's an industry that grabs you, and it's always changing, so it's never, ever dull. First of all, lovely to be here, and thank you. My name's Sarah Shields, and I am with Dell Technologies now, after a brilliant career, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, working for a variety of different brands. But what I want to do today is to talk through how you are able to make it to the top. Making it to the top is all about the journey that you choose to go on. You know, and a career in technology is a really good journey. And the next slide shows you why it's a good journey. You know, when you, if you look at where we are right now, we are right in the middle of the 4th industrial revolution. And actually, what we're going through with COVID-19 is proof that we are in the middle of this industrial revolution. You know, we know what steam did, we know what electricity did. The 3rd industrial revolution was about semiconductors and computing. The 4th industrial revolution is all about big data. And that means that when you look to choose your career and your career journey, this gives you future-proof safety. So a couple of stats that we've got on the next slide, please. You know, and these are US stats, but there's going to be a massive labour shortage in the IT industry. To Mark's point, you don't have to be technical to work in this industry. Yes, you've got programmers and you've got engineering, you've got robotics, you've got AI, you've got machine learning, but you've also got the ability to promote it, to sell it, to service it, to look after it, and to be involved in the development. The opportunity for entrepreneurialism within this industry and within the 4th industrial revolution is massive. And the beautiful thing is, we know that by 2024 in the US alone, and for globally triple, times 5, times 6, times 7, times 10, that there will be a shortage of these of jobs and people to go in those jobs. And this is perfect to be filled by women. If we go to the next slide, I'm going to come up with a couple of quick statements and some facts to back this up. But we know that companies with diverse teams that include more women and more minorities will be more innovative, more successful and more profitable. We also know that the world is changing and businesses need to change with the world in order to be relevant, in order to be successful. So I promised you some stats, but look at the next slide. I'll give you some statistics. Now, these are from a variety of different places, but Forbes state 85% of companies that have diversity, so a mixed workforce, are more innovative. There's a higher customer satisfaction in inclusive workforces. We know that 2/3 of IT employers said that they have skills shortages, and they know that their future is dependent on fixing those skills shortages. There are more women going into the workforce, and we know that women are influencers when it comes to spend. Looking at the spend in 2018 of 21.6 trillion, over 18 of that was influenced by women. So we need to make sure that we become far more relevant and far more obvious in this industry. So let's look at the next slide. So these are my simple tips of how do you get to the top. The first one is the pen that writes your future. You hold that pen, you write your future. What I mean by that is you are in control of your destination, and pick your destination as soon as you're able to. It's like turning up at a bus station. You don't know which bus to get unless you know where you want to get to. So pick your destination and choose the way that you get there. So it's what you own it, not somebody else, not your manager, not your tutor, not your parents, nobody. You own it. So take hold of that pen. The second one is be authentic. It's incredible how small industries are. If we look at the technology industry, I've been in this industry for 25 years now, and the number of times you meet the same people and they know you, they grow up with you. So be your authentic self. That's how you get noticed. So when you're looking at your next promotion, you're looking at joining a new company, you want to try a new technology, just be yourself and be true. That leads on to my third point, which is You know, as soon as you go out in the world, treat every single day like an interview. You are not allowed to have a bad day. Okay, you are not allowed to have a bad day, because if you're having a bad day, you're not being your best self. And people will always form opinions and perceptions on you, how you behave and how you come across in one moment of time. So treat every day as an interview. I also think that you should always ask one more question. All right, be curious. Interesting people are curious. And as you go up through organizations, you want to know how an organization works. You want to know the different people within an organization, and you want to make a difference. And you make a difference by showing entrepreneurship, asking one more question, questioning the way you do things, the way people do things, the way organizations do things. Put your fingerprints on everything that you do and look to influence and change. And then the final tip is just always be present and enjoy it. You know, one of the great things about working in technology is it's so fast moving, and it is the pace of the business is super fast. No 2 days are the same. You'll always come across really new and exciting things. I look at today, and you know, I've never been so busy. You know, we talk about industries that are, and Jane mentioned this in the opening, you talk about industries that are future proof and COVID proof. We've sold a record number of laptops around the world. We're selling and supporting you know, the Human Genome Projects. We're supporting the cure, the hunt for vaccines, the research on DNA. This is where the industry comes to life, and you can be part of it. You can understand what's going on, and you can be part of the change that we bring to the world. You can also manage your work-life balance beautifully in this industry. At Dell, we went from having 18,000 people working from home, because we adopted working from home policies 10 years ago. We had 18,000 people on a Monday morning working from home. This is before the crisis really kicked off, and we saw what was happening. And overnight, we shut our offices. And that meant we went from 18,000 to 121,000 people working from home within 12 hours. It was phenomenal. To have that sort of technology, that sort of foresight, and be part of that journey has just been super exciting. And again, I've enjoyed every single moment. So my question to everybody on the call is, why not a career in technology? If you want to have a future-proof career, if you want to get as high as you can in an industry that is always changing, always has new opportunities, and is a perfect place for women, this is the industry for you. Why not give it a go? When I look at my team and I look at what we're doing to support women, diversity and inclusion, I couldn't be prouder of what we're doing at Dell. 46% of my graduate intake right now are women. When I look at my demographics of the team, we're trying to find new talent, young talent that we can bring into our organisation. We're looking across all types of people, all types of individuals, and across a whole variety of career opportunities. So my message is really simple. You know, this is a great place to work. So, you know, come join us, and you know, let's change the narrative of diversity in the tech industry together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. That leads beautifully onto my topic. So that's a great link. Just to go back to some of the other speakers previously, I got into tech by mistake. I worked in TV production for 10 years. And I'm also not necessarily technical at all. So my area is around project management. So again, if you're quick to learn, it's very easy to learn what you need to do. Soft skills in all of these areas are almost much more important than the technical skills. Technical skills can be learned, but there is lots and lots of opportunity. as we've already mentioned. So thank you for having me. I'm Jill, and I'm going to talk about the power of diversity in the world of tech. So I'm just going to have this slide up because I'm only having one slide, and I'm just going to be talking through this. So according to the 2011 census, women and girls make up 51% of the population, and men and boys 49%. And yet we've heard this again and again, women only account for 16.8% of workers in the UK tech sector. This number goes down when you talk about women who are working in as IT business analysts, architects and system designers. And it goes down even further to 12.5% for programmers and software developers. But it's not just about women. If you then add race, sexuality, intersectionality, neurodiversity or physical disability, the numbers do plummet. So it's brilliant to hear about companies that are doing a lot around diversity, but there is still a long way to go. People of African and Caribbean heritage are disproportionately low in the tech sector. The true statistics aren't known, but the British Computer Society estimates it's only about 1 to 2%. But then Indian and Asian heritage are much higher. For example, there's a huge number of widely used technical companies based in India and Asia. So we know that there's a bit of a problem, but why does it matter to us? So there's the normal irritations. There's shivering in offices set to a male temperature norm. There's struggling to reach a top shelf set at a male height norm. Not enough public toilets for women. VR headsets or telephone headsets that don't fit around head coverings. Soap dispensers that don't work for black skin. But there's life-threatening implications as well. Crashing in a car whose safety measures don't account for women's measurements. Having your heart attack or a colon infection go undiagnosed because your symptoms are atypical or they're put down to women's problems or menopause. Medicines and doses that have been tested on males and not females. So diversity of thought is as important as diversity in background or race. From an accessibility perspective, we need to ensure that when we build websites or apps, that they're accessible for all learning differences, as well as insight into how customers will interact with the product. So diversity matters in coding, because coding is all about solving problems. And if you're going to solve problems correctly for a big group of people, you need different perspectives on those problems and how to solve them. You also need people that think differently. So by coming up with the solutions that are innovative and things that work for the greatest group of people. So the real danger is artificial intelligence lacks intelligence without different voices. So there's a number of classic examples, stories that autonomous cars are unlikely to detect pedestrians crossing the road if they have dark skin and thus run them over. Facial recognition has a higher accuracy for white faces rather than darker skin. And algorithms can be written in a discriminatory way. For example, in the US legal system, a program for predicting repeat offenders predicts that black defendants pose a higher risk of reoffending than they actually do, and the reverse for white defendants. A 2015 study showed that in a Google Images search for CEO, only 11% of the people it displayed were women, even though at that time, 27% of the chief executives in the US were female. Apple's Health Kit can help you keep track of your blood alcohol. If you're still growing, it'll track your weight. If you have an inhaler, it'll help you track how often you use it. You can even use it to input your sodium intake. But of all the crazy stuff you can do with the health app, Apple somehow managed to omit a menstrual cycle tracker. The first iPhone was launched in 2007, but the period tracking feature only arrived in 2019. Why? Because none of the males who developed the app thought about it or had even the experience of needing to track the menstrual cycle. You'll have all read about the spacesuit debacle in 2019, when a female astronaut had to give up her place to walk in space because NASA didn't have enough medium-sized spacesuits. Now, none of this is actually sexism or even consciously biased, but it does raise a very real issue for women in all fields, traditionally dominated by men. The tools weren't initially designed with women in mind, and they never will be if products are designed, built, and developed by non-diverse teams. Another interesting example is emoji. So this is the fastest growing language used by more than 90% of the world's online population, and women are its heaviest users. 78% of women versus 60% of men frequently use emoji. And yet, until 2016, the world of emojis was curiously male. Ironically, Unicode, who developed the code, kept it very gender neutral for most emoji characters, and it was the individual platforms like Facebook, Twitter, etc., that interpreted these gender neutral terms as male. For example, spy, doctor, astronaut, etc. And there wasn't a female equivalent until 2016, and Unicode decided to do something about this. So rather than keeping to their neutral gender stance, they decided to explicitly gender all emojis that depicted people. So instead of runner, which had universally represented as a male runner, they issued the code so that female and also skin color options now exist for most emojis. So this is all well and good, but what does it actually mean to you and also the future? So diversity and inclusion is really important. I'm sure you've already experienced pros and cons already during your life at university. But it's belonging that what we want to be aiming for in society, as well as in the workplace. So I've put this slide up. Diversity is having a seat at the table. Inclusion is having a voice, but belonging is having that voice listened to. Now, Sarah touched on this. Companies with more diverse workforces perform better financially. In the UK, for every 10% increase in gender diversity in senior executive teams, the company's EBIT rose by 3.5%. Diverse teams are more innovative, they think out of the box, there's better challenging and diversity of thought, encouraging team members to think differently. They're also more likely to develop and build products that reflect widespread customer base. And belonging is important because when people can be themselves at work, they tend to be more productive and creative. So you're all about to go into the world of work and you need to be prepared and make the right choices. The way that employers write their job descriptions, how they review CVs and undertake interviews are really important to ensure equity of opportunity. And I'm sure Marc will support all of this, but many job descriptions have been and still are very male orientated, using hard language, specific experience, full-time hours, lots of technical language. And this is proven to not only put women off from applying for roles, but also people who are neurodiverse or LGBTQ. You'll probably have heard the statistic, men apply for a job when they meet only 60% of the qualifications, but women only apply if they meet 100% of them. It's not always as simple as this, of course. Women are usually more conscious of not wanting to waste their time or an employer's time if they don't think they're likely to get the role. And employers and hiring managers all have unconscious or conscious bias that they may give into. And this, of course, can go both ways. So a woman with a child may be as likely to employ another mother as a white middle-aged man from Eton is likely to employ an Etonian. And that's why employers really need to ensure that CVs are reviewed by more than one person, ideally someone different from the hiring manager, and why interview panels are so important. So when you go for interviews, don't be put off by a panel interview. As long as the panel is diverse, ideally from a gender and ethnic perspective where possible, then actually that employer is taking its diversity and inclusion strategy seriously. So I hope you found this useful. My final takeaways for you are, if the teams who develop and build the products which impact the social and economic future aren't diverse, then we'll never get to a point where the world is a safe environment for everyone, regardless of the skin you're in. And my last tip is to be proud of who you are, where you come from, and most importantly, what you can bring to the job. Embrace your differences and shine a positive light on them to demonstrate to an employer not only what you can bring to the table, but why you were worth listening to. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Emma now.
Great, thanks very much, Jill. Great, so hi everyone, I'm Emma Maslen. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my career and pick up on a couple of points that have been previously mentioned today as well. So I've spent the last 20 years in tech. Just as Jill had mentioned and Sarah before, I actually fell into tech accidentally. My career started in tech when I was doing administration and customer service type work. And then when I was 19, I went to work for Ingram Micro as a customer service agent. I worked my way through Ingram Micro, taking a number of careers, and I'll talk through that in a second around the different types of roles that I took within that company. And then eventually I ended up at SAP, which I'll talk about as well. But I've decided to take a little bit of a different turn in my career now, which might be interesting to just pick up on some of the points that Jill mentioned around companies that may innovate, which will be the ones that potentially could change the world from a diversity perspective. So this was my career ladder. This is how I climbed up the corporate career. So I left school only with GCSEs. I went to work as an export administrator for Gossards, the bra company. And then eventually, as I mentioned, I went into customer services at Ingram Micro. There I was really lucky, and I met a really interesting guy from IBM who felt that I could do so much more with my career. And he was probably the first person who really pushed me to go and take a job that was, I felt, really punching above my weight. So I went to work for an IBM reseller and a company called Oakbrook, and I worked there for 4 years. By the time I was 20, I was doing $6-7 million deals with the likes of people like UBS and Egg at the time, if you guys remember those, who was a big credit card company that eventually got bought by Citibank. I was in sales, and actually the thing that I really enjoyed when I went to work for the IBM reseller was that I was actually in the business of business. I didn't consider it to be tech, whilst that's what I was selling, because I was selling IBM's hardware. But actually what I enjoyed doing was I enjoyed doing the deals, I enjoyed meeting people, I enjoyed understanding what people's needs were, and then actually selling them something of value. From that reseller, that then took me to Sun Microsystems, where I spent another 5 years. And that took me out to the US as well. And one of the things that I did for Sun that was slightly different on sales was I worked in partnerships. So I ran a couple of global partnerships out of Boston for Sun, which was a really great way for me to see the world, actually. Recently married, so my husband and I traveled the US, which was great. But gave me another sort of feather in my cap, really, to around the whole process of doing business and doing deals and working with different companies. I left Sun, then went at the time of the Oracle acquisition, and then I went to work for BMC Software. And again, really on the commercial side of things. So very much now I was an expert in enterprise sales. I then went into leadership at BMC Software and ran some software teams and really got into senior leadership from there. And then from then, I then went to work for SAP and spent the last couple of years of my corporate career as the managing director of the Concur business, which is the expenses business at SAP. And throughout my career, what I've tried to do is every time I've taken a leap, I've tried to try and gather another skill, something else that I could just put down on my CV, something different, something that was incremental to my already, very good career. And particularly when I took the managing director's job at Concur, for me, that was running an entire business, which is something that I'd never done before. And again, with this idea of whilst it is tech, I actually like doing business. So that for me, that was something where I could learn something new, learn something different. Because when I left school with just my GCSEs, the one thing that I did promise myself was I would continue to learn. So what's happened since I left Concur? So I left Concur last July, and I'm now doing a bunch of different things. So one of the first things I did in continuing my career is that I've gone back to school. So I've been studying at Hendy Business School, actually as an executive coach. That's something that I've always very much enjoyed. I also now as well am an angel investor. I have actually been an angel investor for the last 3 years. So just to explain what that is, I've done very well in the technology sector. So what I now do is I now invest in female funded and female founded businesses, primarily tech businesses, but there are other businesses in there as well. And I'm very active in the angel investment community. I write, which is something new, which is something that I really wanted to do all my life, but now I've got some time to write. And finally, I'm a consultant now for a number of startups where I help them with their commercial strategies based on the things that I've done in the past and the commercial deals that I've cut with companies in the past. And the reason why I mention that and what I'm actually doing now is because everything that I've had in my corporate career has really helped me now with the startup career. And I just wanted to share a little bit around the difference between the corporate and the startup world. So I'm very thankful to the corporate world for everything that it provided me. I've always worked for really big household names, certainly in the tech sector, and that gave me a lot of structure. It gave me a lot of sort of structured training and education and a regular drumbeat of new things that you would learn. Also, there was an element of safety in there as well. I had both my children in the corporate world, definitely gave me other options and an opportunity to progress. The startup world is a bit more different, but there's pros and cons to both. Certainly the startup world's a lot more agile. It's very fast paced. There is an amazing amount of innovation that goes on in the startup world. But there are some risks around the startup world, certainly if you're an employer or if you're employed by a startup, but there are more rewards as well. But certainly for me, I found it really refreshing going from a corporate world to a startup, because I can apply all the learning that I had to then move into the startup world, which is then useful for the companies that I'm working with. And just wanted to pick up on the point of diversity, because it's something that Jill mentioned earlier. So the startup world has its diversity challenges. Around only 3% of all startup funding goes to all female founded founders, and only 11% goes to mixed founders. So there is a lot of work to be done in the startup world around diversity of funding, as well as actually getting people into the startup world. But some of those companies are really innovating in areas that perhaps, again, we wouldn't have seen them as being tech. I've invested in med tech companies that have looked at things like using AI to cure cancer, using different types of medical devices. Also, I've invested in a toy tech company as well. There are blockchain companies. There's all sorts of different companies that are in there, and an opportunity for you to do something different. There's a lot of variety in the startup world. But the one piece of advice I want to give today, like the other ladies have shared before me, is something just really that I've been working on over the last sort of 10 years, which is the idea of having your own personal board. So I think the thing that enabled me to move from the corporate world into the startup world was I had a good group of people that I could take counsel from. There was a couple of questions that I saw on the Q&A and on the chat around, you know, how do you get into different career areas, different industries? How do you go and get a job that maybe is in somewhere that you haven't you've got no experience in and that you had before? So one of the things that I would really recommend is thinking about the people who are sat at your table and who can help you. Whilst you may not know people who are in the tech space, you will know somebody who knows somebody in the tech space. And whilst we shouldn't have to rely on other people to give us a leg up in different industries, right now, until we've solved some of the problems that Jill mentioned earlier, actually we need that. And people buy from people. So if they're looking for somebody to fill a role, you are more likely to get that role if those people know you or have had an soft introduction to you. So that's a little bit about my background, about what I've done, about also explaining around how tech doesn't have to be tech. And I'm now going to hand over to Laura Jane. Thanks very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for that, Emma, and thank you very much for the ladies before. My slides are just popping up now for those of you still with us. Like I say, my name is Laura Jane Turner. I was actually a student at Brunel myself. I've kind of very, very carefully placed my photograph behind for my graduation day in 1994, which is a rather scary 26 years ago. So when I went to Brunel, I went on one of the very first people to go through the foundation degree that enabled you to go from an arts background to more of a science and technology background. So I was one of the very first people to go through that, and it was fascinating. And I'm very grateful to Brunel for actually having that degree available, which I suspect is probably proper dyed in the wool now. But my idea with that was because although I loved all things technical at the time, I wasn't massively great at the technical stuff. So I wasn't brilliant at maths, I wasn't brilliant at engineering science, and I kind of thought to myself, well, I really enjoy this. My father was an electrical engineer, and I kind of got his love of taking things apart and putting them back together, even when they worked as well, occasionally. So the idea was that I wanted to go and do something that was more from a technical perspective than from perhaps an arts background. And having done the foundation degree at Brunel, I then got the opportunity to go into the first year of the management and technology degree, which was run by the business school at the time. And that was fascinating. It was a fascinating opportunity to see the mix of the art side of things, so the law and the project management and so on, and then the engineering side of material science and engineering science and so on. And when I left there, I thought to myself, right, I'm a newly qualified graduate, I've got this fantastic BSc behind me, what am I going to do with my life? And if I'm honest, I sometimes still wake up and have that same point. Now, I've been really lucky in that I've had the opportunity to work in IT and technology for pretty much all of my 26 years. And as the ladies before me have done, I've used that opportunity to really have a good look round and see where I can help, where my skills and talents are best used, and really get an understanding of this industry that keeps drawing me back and that I love dearly. Sometimes when I was talking to Mark about this session before we joined, one of the things we talked about was what would have got me into tech earlier, what would have made me think about tech as a career actually while I was at Brunel. Because if I'm honest, at the time, I think the expectation was at Brunel, this is quite some years ago, was that if you did an engineering degree, you would go into some form of engineering. Well, to be honest, I probably wasn't, I don't think, looking back and being totally honest, I probably wasn't good enough to do that actual true engineering side of things. So I wanted something that was more of a hybrid. So I actually went in, my first job was actually working for Vauxhall Cars, and I became a Part 1 qualified mechanic as part of a graduate development program. But then when I realised that actually I don't like getting dirty quite that much, I got the opportunity to move into digital computing, which became Compact, which became, I can't even remember at the moment, HP. So I had this opportunity to go and work in a company where I had what I thought were no real transferable skills, but actually I went into sales. And in sales, the main thing you need to be is a personable person who can understand what they're selling and understand how to talk to people and get a sense of their needs and their desires and what it is they're actually looking to achieve with the thing they want to buy. And from then on in, I actually realised that whilst I might not be able to code, I can do a little bit of basic programming. I can't code particularly well, but actually I have a place in technology. And since then, that's where I stayed. And I've been very lucky that through the course of the evolution of my career, I've taken those skills that I learned all those years ago and the resilience that I've picked up whilst being a Brunel student, and that's enabled me to move through a number of industries, all with a technology bent. Because I think whilst obviously all the ladies here at the moment, all the people speaking, Mark as well, we consider ourselves in the technology industry. Actually, you can be a technologist in any industry. So I can support customers in any industry, but actually I've also been in oil and gas, for example, and there are needs for people with a technology skill set and a technology mindset as much there as there are in the technology channel. So don't be thinking just because we're talking to you about technology that necessarily has to mean computers. It can mean a lot more. There are loads of options out there that you can start looking into. My career has all been around sales and sales operations, whether it's tender management, sales contracts, or so on. So I've kind of had that love-hate relationship with technology where I love it and I'm surrounded by it now as I sit here, and it enables me to work and it keeps me busy every day. But actually, if someone were to ask me to take the lid off my laptop and fix something, I wouldn't have a clue. But I've had the benefit of working over the years with a number of people in technology, such as your business analysts and project managers and finance accountants and every pre-sales technical people and salespeople and sales support people and marketing. And there's such a range of people that are involved within technology, either directly in it or as a peripheral, that actually means that this is a career is fascinating and it can take you pretty much anywhere. And when I think back, the thing that's attracted me probably the most over the years within the IT industry, and I'll reflect on what Sarah said earlier, is the fact that it does move every day. There's something different every day. It's very dynamic. You know, it's one day you can be talking to a customer about hardware, the next day you can be talking to another customer about a massive software project, you can be talking to, you know, central government about helping them with the latest response they're looking to provide through use of technology. And I've been lucky that I've been part of that process in a number of different organisations. My role within all the organisations I've worked for has always tried to develop women in IT as well, women in the industry I work for. I'm a real advocate for mentoring, and what I would suggest, my one tip for the day would be wherever you look to move to, try and find someone who can help you. So carry on what Emma said, you know, it isn't always who you know, what you know, it's who you know. But once you get into an organization, look for someone who can help you. Look for that mentor, look for that supporter, look for that advocate, because they're the people that will help guide and shape your career to mean that you don't make some of the mistakes that you look back, you think, oh gosh, if I could have only just spoken to someone about it, it would have been really useful for me to be able to have that conversation and understand a little bit about what my step could be, my next move to be. So whatever you work in, you know, please look for those people. And what I would say about the IT industry is that actually we have a plethora of women's networks. In fact, all sorts of diversity networks. There are numerous ones out there that will help you and guide you and give you offers of support, regardless of your background, your current levels, or your kind of organisations that you might actually be working for. That could be anything from Women of the Wharf, that down in London. There are women in tech, there's women who code, there's the support you get through Women in the Channel from the CRN group, there's the PCR group. They also support women in the channel. You've got organisations like Marc's at Robinson Sumner that can't do enough to support women in technology. There are, in fact, all people in technology. So there are so many resources out there that will help you make the most of that career. And I think the only thing I would say is, if I'd have had an opportunity to come into it earlier, it would have been because I'd have had my eyes open to exactly how fantastic it can be and exactly where technology can take you. I mean, I've not been based overseas, but I've had the opportunity to travel the world, and it's been a fantastic career thus far, and I look forward to many more happy years. I think my call to action for you all would be, do get in touch with organisations like Marc's. Make sure you're keeping your eye on LinkedIn for opportunities to join networks, to listen to what people have got to say around how they've done it. Role models are really important. See if you can find someone who will mentor you or work with you, or even just be an ear to listen to. Find an internship. My company, Jigsaw 24, we take on internships every year where we can support people into technology as a career. Give you a bit of a taste, and there's loads of organisations out there that will do that. My previous company, Centerprise, they do the same. So find those organisations that will embrace you. Let's go and find out what you enjoy about it and where you can find your strongest mark. And I'd like to think I speak on behalf of all of us here, where we say, reach out to us. You know, we're all on LinkedIn. Find us, see what we can do to help. But absolutely, I cannot recommend IT and tech as a career any higher. It's been brilliant for me, and I wish you all the very best in your own journeys.
Thank you so much. I think everybody have shared their insights about the industry and how we could actually encourage more women to get into tech. Now, we actually have lots of questions, so I have to vet through as well, because we don't have a lot of time, but I'll try my best to cover most of the questions. It says here that, you know, to encouragement of girls and women need to start very early, year 6, 7, senior school, and also university. What can be done to encourage them on this path while in school? Jane, you want to give it a go?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough one, because I think it's a societal problem. You know, we know that women have these stereotypes about themselves, driven by ideas of society. I mean, I hope those are shifting for young girls now. I think they are. I think there has been a significant shift in this. But yeah, I mean, we go out to schools a lot in the work that we do, and we try to push those messages forward, because it's not just technology, it's business generally, and the world of business that has been very sort of traditionally male-dominated domain. I mean, when I first entered academia and was interested in both technology and business, I did feel rather a lone light as a woman. And there were many obstacles in my way, if I'm honest, and I think it was, you know, they were hard to push through, but I did. I think you do need to sort of not let people determine how you see yourself. But I think, yeah, I mean, we get out to schools all the time, and we do talk to them a lot about, you know, careers, male and female careers, you know, careers for everybody. And I think we need to keep getting that message out, but it also needs to be a societal message. I mean, my own niece, she recently, you know, completed a degree in aerospace engineering. And it was interesting that she was only 2 women in the entire class of about 260 men. So we still have got a long, long way to go in terms of some of the more technological aspects, actually.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Do you want to add a few things about that?
Funny enough, my own daughter's doing engineering, and she's only one of 4 in her class of, I think there's 60 in her class is doing that. But I do think it's in general, it's about education in, you know, for companies like ours going into schools, but also as well everyone in our industry encouraging their own daughters and their friends' daughters to go into those subjects. It is very stereotypical. You know, my daughter, who's 14, decided to do engineering because her mum works for British Airways and she wanted to go that route, and she wanted to do business studies because I want to do that. So hopefully people in our own industry can influence their own daughters and their friends' daughters to go into it. And I think it is just through education, either companies like ours and, you know, people like the ladies that they've actually heard those inspiring stories to actually give education to those STEM subjects to go into. But it's a responsibility for the people already in the industry to make sure that we're actually educating people from outside the industry and those younger people to come into our industry in the first place.
Good. So now we have a few questions about engineering management. So let me read it out here. So perhaps Sarah could actually take this. So there's a scope of engineering. I want to know the scope of engineering management. After doing the MSc engineering management, what possible jobs and opportunities I can get in the UK? And we also have another one that asking about if they don't actually have any experience and opportunities in the industry, how can they actually do that? So I think I'll pass it to Sarah and then Mark afterwards.
Sure. I mean, what an exciting time to go into engineering. And I think, you know, I started talking about the 4th industrial revolution, which is all about machine learning, artificial intelligence, and just what we're able to do with the huge amounts of data that we are generating on an hourly basis. You know, as an organisation, we spend $4.5 billion a year on research and development. That's a ton of engineering. So I think my advice to anybody who is looking at an engineering career is, you know, work out which part of the industry do you want to work in. You know, what kind of solutions do you want to deliver? You know, there's such a variety and a whole host of new areas that are coming online every day that needs powerful engineering management and are going to give some great future opportunities. To get that, I think that the advice that was already given, you know, find people in your network who can help you. Use LinkedIn. You know, find individuals or companies that inspire you and where you would be interested in working, and reach out and ask the question, you know, can I find out more? Can I look at your recruitment right now? Can I get some experience? You know, look at internships, look at placements, looking at what you can do. You know, and again, you know, you choose the area you want to go in because the opportunities are vast. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Mark. Do you want to add a few things on that?
Yeah, I think Sarah's right. I think the pace of technology is changing all the time. It's looking at what area you want, what technology you want to go into. On answer to the question, what positions are available? There's a massive shortage of people, whether it's females or males in our industry. And believe me, if you've got an engineering degree, you know, you'll be in high demand into any part of the channel, whether that's distribution, a vendor, or a reseller. So there will be no shortage of opportunities. It will be just narrowing down what you want, what you're interested in, and which section of the section of the technology you want to go into. What I would caveat that with as well, even if you have got an engineering degree, you can still go into sales and other areas of the technology as well. You know, there's lots of people that do engineering degrees and go on grad schemes into our industry, any of the partners or the vendors. So believe me, there'll be what positions are available. You'll be inundated with positions. You know, we're in such that your skills and requirements and a degree are in such demand at the moment. You'll have a lot of choice. So I would say narrow it down yourself. think about what tells you what you want, act like a consumer, start researching what area you want to go into, and then apply through companies like ours or LinkedIn, or go on the websites direct, and you should be inundated with opportunities.
So I believe now the issue here is not about the fact that they have less experience. It's more about knowing the direction that they wanted to go, and then just straight ahead, try to apply and then see what comes out. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. There'll be no, if someone's got a degree from Brunel with an engineering degree and they want to go into either engineering or technical or sales, they'd be inundated with offers. There's a real shortage of people in our industry in general coming into our industry, and skill shortages at the moment. So I'd almost sort of advise them to sort of, research what companies they want to go into and what section of technology they want to go into, what's of interest to them. And then go after it, and they will be inundated with opportunities. Believe me, we'll be able to get them jobs straight away. So yeah, come and see us. That's definite.
Fantastic. So there's another question here is, what advice would you give a 30-year-old from the BAME community who is looking to make a career jump into tech, but is feeling like there isn't enough representation and they are too old? Perhaps Jill, will you be able to provide some insight on here?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, you are not too old. You are never too old to change career. You're never too old to discover something. I mean, there are loads of examples of very famous people who have only, become famous, or that we've known about them at a very, very late stage in their life. So first of all, I want to dispel that myth. It's never too late. And secondly, so my advice would be, it depends on what your experience is now. So if you've got some transferable skills, that will definitely be a lot easier. Look at what area of technology you want to go into. So if you have maybe project management or organization skills or analyst skills or something like that, first of all, look at what's transferable, and that will make your path easier. Secondly, definitely networks. We've talked about a number of times. I talk about networks a lot, didn't in this one, but networks are incredibly powerful. Mentors are incredibly powerful. If you feel that there is not enough role models with the same background as yourself. So BAME community, again, LinkedIn, there are huge amounts of women and men who have got so much experience out there. So I would look at LinkedIn. I would identify a few people who you really admire, start following them, start building a conversation with them, tell them a little bit about yourself. I almost guarantee that they will help you. Just don't ever forget, and I think we've said this a few times, just because people are deemed to be successful, we've all been through, our struggles. We've all had that career journey that's gone squiggly or this, that, and, mentors have helped us. People we've been there in the right place at the right time. I genuinely believe that most people, however busy they are, will always have time to answer a question or will to help you. I really hope that they would. If they don't, then move on to the next person. But you will find people out there who are willing to help, especially in the BAME community. So I would go look for someone to mentor you, who you can relate to, who you admire, and go that way. And again, we can have a separate conversation if you want to contact me via LinkedIn. If that's helpful, hopefully it is.
Thank you, Jill. There's another question as well that talks a lot about how can we get into startups. A lot of conversation today is focusing more on corporates. Now, perhaps Emma and Jill yourself, you could actually provide some insight on it is challenging to be in startup, especially if you are young, right? And what is the advice, because based on the what Emma has shared with her experience, so she went into corporates and how, she managed to jump into a startup because of her knowledge in corporate. Now, does the advice is for those who want to go into this direction to, get an experience in corporate first and then start their own business, or, to navigate all of these challenges because they have this fantastic product in mind?
Yeah, so you can do either. So I think going back to the point about the power of networks, that's the thing that's really important here. So I would encourage anybody that's thinking about maybe going straight from university and starting their own business, I would definitely find yourself a network that's going to work for you. So I'm a member of the Albright Club, and I'm also a member of the Wing in London, which are female-only clubs, but particularly they're incubators for a lot of startups. Not just tech startups, but media startups, fashion, sustainable fashion, administration, med tech, all sorts of different types of startups that actually run out of both of those clubs. They have a really active community online. So whilst we're in the sort of COVID times at the moment, they're still doing a lot of education and support for funding, maybe even just meeting other people to sort of spar and get some support. So I would definitely find yourself a good network. The other thing I'd look at as well is, again, going back to the point around who are people that you admire, there are some really cool people to follow in the startup world. If anybody's particularly interested, if you link to me on LinkedIn, I can give you a couple to follow. A great example would be somebody like Emma Sinclair, who's the CEO of Enterprise Alumni. She was the youngest person to ever IPO a company, youngest female also to IPO a company at the age of 29. She's very active in the startup community to get other people helped out in the startup community as well. So definitely I would suggest following somebody like Emma on Twitter. But again, if people reach out to me, I can provide some support for that.
I could just add to that, actually, just on the self-employed thing. So similar to Emma, so I've had a corporate career, but I had a side hustle, and I think that's a way a lot of people start their self-employed life. You find that a lot of women, especially actually, having had corporate careers, a lot of times will feel once they've had kids that, you know, maybe the work-life balance isn't quite what they're looking for, and there is a big, you know, until things change at the moment, there's a big people moving into the self-employed area and actually doing what they really want to do. I would say that if you're young, I mean, if you're passionate about something and you really, really want to do it, there's so many young people I see in the millenniums and younger who come straight out of uni and really are very, very successful. So again, look at people on LinkedIn, follow people, get advice. There's a lot of networks, a lot of women in business networks, a lot of self-employed networks. So I would do that and find out from people lessons learned. What happened? What did they do wrong, and what would they give advice for? Because then that helps you not make the same mistakes. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. So we have another one coming in again on the developing. I'm still in the university, and I'm currently developing my own skills online during the COVID to prepare myself for the industry. What would be one thing that I should focus on? Perhaps everybody, all of the panelists could actually chip in of what one skill that you think students who graduates who's currently, you know, using their time, you know, while waiting for this lockdown, during this lockdown, what is one skill that they should focus on to upskill themselves during this lockdown? So can we actually get everybody to chip in on this before we call it a day?
Okay, maybe if I go first on that one, the ladies have already alluded to it. Really, it is enhancing your network with that. You know, this is a time where you can do lots of research. You can research companies. You know, people mentioned about, you know, startups. There's Angel List. You know, startup companies will use that as a job board. But doing research in companies all the time, making sure you're growing your network, making sure you're contacting, you know, recruitment companies like ours, companies direct, talent acquisition managers direct, making sure you're putting all that research out there all that time and all that due diligence, and that will stand you in good stead. But when we come out of COVID, you should be well prepared into actually knowing what you want to do, knowing which industry you want to go into, knowing what types of roles up there, and hopefully having that network of people that you can use, hopefully some of the ladies on the panel today, but that network that you can use to actually help you get into the right industry.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark.
I'd agree. I think on top of what Mark said, I don't know whether you've noticed, but we are inundated with webinars at the moment. I mean, there is so much out there. So if you've got the spare time now, as well as the research, so as part of your research, as part of your networking, is actually take advantage of all the free stuff that's out there at the moment. A lot of courses are cheaper, have got reduced costs as well. So a lot of project management, any sort of online courses are cheaper. So this is the time, if you've got the time. Some of us are more busy than we've ever been before, but if you've got the time, then definitely online courses, online webinars, build your network, make contacts, use LinkedIn, and find a mentor.
Thank you, Jill.
And if I just go as well, so yeah, I'm a big believer in the network. I actually run sessions on creating your own personal board. So if anybody wants to have a look at my LinkedIn profile, you can pick up the link from there. The webinars, the events are all good stuff at the moment. I think if you can do some things where you have the opportunity to talk to some people about as well about what you're looking for. The Albright Club run a really good session called Work the Room, which is very similar to some of the sessions that I run, where you can meet other entrepreneurs, other people in corporate settings as well, and really just sort of find somebody. They do sort of speed dating in those online as well, which is quite good one-on-one. If you can find those types of environments, they're definitely ones to look for, because that's where you'll really make the connection over what is maybe an impersonal setting right now around the tech.
Fantastic, thank you. Sarah?
I agree with everything that has been said so far. What I would say is work on your elevator pitch. All right, this is when you meet somebody new, you have a short amount of time where you can make an impact. So what is your story? Practice your story. Practice what makes you interesting and different, so that when you do go into your network and you do turn up for these opportunities, that you are as impactful as you can possibly be as quickly as you can. So elevator pitch. There's tons and tons of research. There's tons of help and advice. We just look online, but that's super important, particularly in a corporate world, but just as important for startups as well. If you're looking at those investor meetings with angels, through VCs, through whichever route, know your story quickly.
So I think my one piece will be building on what's been said before. Networks are important, absolutely. Your personal message, but don't try and do it all yourself. There are such a lot of people out there that will be going through something similar. The people that you're currently studying with, the people that you've interacted with while you've been at university, the people that you live and work with now, all of those will be going through similar situations of wanting to either develop more skills, look to develop themselves, look to further either their business or their future. And what I would say is you need to build your own personal networks as well as the broader ones that you can engage with. Use this time to get the like-minded people you work with now and those that you trust and you can work with, and share some of that knowledge. So if one of you is going to go off and find out about self-employment, someone else might go off and look at social media marketing, someone else might look at something else, and then bring that information back together collectively, because you're by doing that, you'll cover an awful lot more ground. You'll be able to build up your own networks that will help you on this journey, because as much as, it's been brilliant, you do have to be resilient. This is not an easy place all the time. So if you can build up your network now of the people that you will be able to rely on going forward, that's a fantastic use of time. And by all of you having a skill within that network, it means that you'll be able to create your own momentum, which is always going to keep you on the darker days, and it gives you people to celebrate with on the days where there's some really good news.
Thank you, Laura Jane. Now back to you, Jane.
Yeah, going back to what I was saying before, it's about having emotional resilience, because I think often people think it's going to happen quickly. They want things to happen quickly, and they think, I've done everything. I've done all the things that everyone's advised, and it's not working for me. And I think sometimes it just takes a while. And I think, you have to be able to look after yourself and maintain your enthusiasm, maintain your energy, even when it's not going perfectly for you. And so it is about learning that emotional resilience, and just, every time you have a knockback, coming back more determined than ever. I mean, I remember for myself, I left school at 16. I don't have any A-levels. I didn't go to university until I was in my mid-30s. And I remember applying to Imperial College for my undergraduate degree in my mid-30s. And they said, no, straight away, no, we don't want you here. A couple of years later, postdoc, I was teaching there. good enough to be a lecturer there, not good enough to be a student. I mean, you know, life has a funny way of, if you stick at it and you're just determined, of working it through, but sometimes it takes a lot of time. It doesn't happen instantly.
Thank you so much for the insightful stories as well, Jane. And the rest of the panelists, we have Mark, Emma, Sarah, Jill, and Laura Jane. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for Andy Bash for putting this together. And, you know, we look forward to see you all in the next webinar. Thank you. Have a lovely day. Bye.